Jen Psaki and Don Lemon. Let's take a listen.
Ask you about your trip traveling across the country, because you were traveling across the country on the way to Chicago where you were, and we'll talk about that too. You interviewed a lot of people.
Yeah.
What are some of the things or trends that surprised you about some of those conversations?
Well, I don't know if it was surprising, but it was certainly eye-opening to hear so...
Exactly. This right here, this is the ministry of truth. Shout out to Patrick Tyler. Patrick Tyler says, questioning and having concerns about them illegals in Denver that are running amok is you being MAGA. Yeah. Voting for the couch is you being MAGA. Saying, hey, I don't know if I'm comfortable with the way that Kamala Harris changes positions on literally everything. You must be MAGA. We're going to turn difference of opinion into an actionable offense, which is why we need to make sure that we have everybody programmed in the exact way that you need to be offended, so that we can use that offense as a charge to action of getting rid of or isolating people that we want to not be able to have any room to breathe. They have their social media trolls out doing it. They have their paid operatives on TV doing it. They have the people that they bus to these rallies doing it. It's literally plain as day. Do not allow shame sensitivity to make these people impress on you a decision that you don't want to make. Your autonomy should always be your first priority.
Ask you about your trip traveling across the country, because you were traveling across the country on the way to Chicago where you were, and we'll talk about that too. You interviewed a lot of people.
Yeah.
What are some of the things or trends that surprised you about some of those conversations?
Well, I don't know if it was surprising, but it was certainly eye-opening to hear so many people, even people of color and women, saying that they are going to support Donald Trump. I'm not quite sure.
Uh-oh. Warm and fuzzy alert. We've got problems in paradise. Somebody call all the Rainbow Gestapo. Oh, it's the happy face army of 2025. The little toy soldiers with the big guns coming to enforce peace and joy for everybody. Because you know what peace is, right? Peace is having such tight control over people that they're scared to fight. Let me ask you guys this question. What era of peace was not run by a violent dictatorship regime? Oh, Star Wars and the Galactic Federation. Look at how nice and organized it was. Oh, if only everybody could see what was going on behind the scenes.
Interviewed a lot of people.
Yeah.
What are some of the things or trends that surprised you about some of those conversations?
Well, I don't know if it was surprising, but it was certainly eye-opening to hear so many people, even people of color and women, saying that they are going to support Donald Trump.
Now, why would that be surprising if we're a monolith, if we're not a monolith? Not a monolith means that there's a multiple amount of outcomes, not all of those outcomes being the same. So you were surprised that you went somewhere and the outcomes amongst each person weren't the same. Let me ask you guys a question. Is that monolith enforcement? If that's monolith enforcement, give me a thumbs up. If that's not monolith enforcement, then give me a thumbs down. So basically what they're saying is, we're shocked that you're not behaving according to programming. That's interesting. That's interesting. Isn't that interesting? So I'm supposed to go amongst a group of people who this group of people is said not monolith, but then I'm surprised when I don't see the same results amongst the majority of them. Does that make any, how many people in here worked in quality control or Six Sigma? Or how many people in here have experience with statistics. Is what I'm saying making sense? Or is this just, I don't know, nonsense? Because somebody's not making sense. Am I plebiscite babbling?
Talentless, scandalous, plebiscite babbling.
Shout out to Crew. What's good with it, bro? Let's hear some more
of those conversations.
Well, I don't know if it was surprising, but it was certainly eye-opening to hear so many people, even people of color and women, saying that they are going to support.
Shout out to DeAndre. That's an excellent point. Shout out to DeAndre. That's an excellent point. Now, DeAndre says, because you heard Joe Biden, if you don't vote for me, then you ain't black. Not a lot of people on that side had a problem with that, right? The very same group of people are saying, if you cook collard greens, then you are black. And now, mind you, Joe Biden said this.
You ain't black.
They said that. And then when we ask about those questions, somehow it's us policing blackness. It seems to me that it's them putting the standard on blackness because, like I said, you could do and be whatever you want to. I believe in autonomy. So don't try to enforce the standards that you set onto me because you can't substantiate them. Because you all want us living in a bizarro world denying reality. This is the party that literally uses denial of reality as an algorithm to the issues. Just look at how they deal with gender dysphoria. Let me ask you guys this question. Are anorexia and bulimia a form of dysphoria? If anorexia and bulimia are a form of dysphoria, give me a thumbs down. Both of those diseases cause you to not see yourself as you actually are, right? Is surgical intervention a cure for those? Let me know.
Support Donald Trump. I'm not quite sure that the polls are accurate as it relates to the tightening of the polls and who's going to support whom. And, right-wing media, when I released my content, they said, oh, Don Lemon was shocked or Don Lemon was surprised at the answers that he got. But there were a lot of black men, Jen, who said that they were supporting Donald Trump simply because he gave them a stimulus check. He gave them $1,200 back when he was president.
Who said that? If any, shout out to the chat, shout out to the Discord gang. If you guys see any of these videos where there's random black men saying Donald Trump gave me $1,200, so I'll vote for him again, let me know. Because what's interesting about that is a lot of people may not be the same age as me, but George Bush gave out stimulus checks. He was one of the first presidents that kind of got his name buzzing for doing the stimulus check thing. A bunch of people didn't jump out the window for him. So who's literally voting for Trump because of a $1,200 stimulus check? I know that's nothing that anybody has heard over here. And also, I'm not voting for Trump. But I know some of you are, and that's perfectly fine. Regardless, that's not anything that anybody's ever heard over here. Shout out to TD Media. TD Media Group makes it very clear. He's supporting Trump this election. He's never said anything about he's doing it because of a $1,200 check, and he's got over 800 videos on his channel. A lot of which, if you listen to them, sound oddly familiar from some people's new videos. So, who's saying these things? The media. See, if you get an article from Pew Research, at the bottom of it, it'll tell you the research method. Right? At the end of this, they don't give us any credit rolling or anything like that that tells us where they got this data from. So who are these people? Shout out to Maximus. Shout out to John Guillory. What's good with y'all? Right? We got to pay attention to this stuff and hammer them on it. And then, other people that kind of critique these things and analyze these things, we got to ask them the same question. You know what I mean? Like, I don't understand why you would make this stuff up. Why would you make it up? Make it make sense.
Did not somehow remember that the current president also gave them a stimulus check, except that his name wasn't on it. So I had to remind them time after time that the check did not come from Donald Trump, that it came from a Democratic Congress, and he actually slowed it up in order to have his name on the check. So when they got the check and his name was on it, they automatically thought that it came directly from Donald Trump, which I think is good.
So I want you guys to pay very close attention, because this right here is Don Lemon. Don Lemon is race simping. Don Lemon is making a case for how simplistic and how stupid he's trying to claim that we are. We're so dumb, we don't even know how the chronology of a written check works. And you just have to, sympathize with our stupidity. If you guys hear him doing this, give me a thumbs up. If you guys don't, then give me a thumbs down.
Also gave them a stimulus check, except that his name wasn't on it. So I had to remind them time after time that the check did not come from Donald Trump, that it came from a Democratic Congress, and he actually slowed it up in order to have his name on.
Now, I don't know if anybody's aware of this, and I don't know if anybody cares, but we'll just talk about it anyway. Don Lemon actually has a problem with Trump because Trump said, grab him by the P. There was a situation that took place a couple years ago involving an individual named, if I'm not mistaken, Justin Heiss, where Don Lemon was actually alleged to have grabbed a bartender by the balls. So these people are complete hypocrisy. These people are a complete contradiction.
On the check. So when they got the check and his name was on it, they automatically thought that it came directly from Donald Trump, which I think is good marketing. It's the same as he does.
So again, he's just making the case for, saying that we're dumb. We don't understand anything. Sitting up here talking, babbling.
Just like a woman. That's because some of you niggas, you be acting just like a woman. The Reaper keep it 1,000.
Thank you. Thank you to the Reaper over there doing good things at the Reaper.
Does for buildings around the country, especially in New York. He doesn't actually own them, but he puts his name on them, and it makes people think that he owns them, and it actually makes them think that he is richer and bigger and more benevolent than he is.
Was there anything, what did they think about Harris? Did they have anything to say about her?
They did have, listen, it depends on where you are. We went to a number of different battleground states in Pennsylvania, Ohio, we were in Michigan, Indiana, on our way, obviously, Illinois, on our way to Chicago. And it sort of depended on where you were. Pennsylvania, well, I shouldn't say Pennsylvania, I should say Philadelphia, was a bit more liberal, and the answers to the questions about her and him were quite different. But for the most part, in Pittsburgh or at the Jersey Shore and in Atlantic City, in Ohio especially, many people did not know who she was. Right? They weren't familiar with her. So I think she has to reintroduce herself to the public. But for him, I think that they thought that he's better for the economy. And that, again, that he gave them, that he brought money into the community, and that he was.
Now, here's the thing, right? One thing that Don Lemon isn't saying, which we've talked about and gone over extensively on the channel, is that national polling data has shown that the majority of Americans do share the same sentiment that Trump managed the economy better. This is a national similarity amongst people who participated in that survey. So what Don Lemon is trying to do is Don Lemon is trying to take that diverse sentiment that's shared by a large amount of people and isolate it to the black people that he was talking so negatively about earlier.
On black people's side. And so, listen, I wasn't surprised by that. I've been doing this long enough to know that you never know where people are going to fall, how they're going to vote. That's their own personal prerogative.
I want you guys to just pay very close attention to how many of you guys agree with this nonsense that Don Lemon just sat up here and said to Jen Psaki? If you guys agree with this, give me a thumbs up. If you guys disagree with this, put a clown face in the chat.
Familiar with her. So I think she has to reintroduce herself to the public. But for him, I think that they thought that he's better for the economy. and that, again, that he gave them, that he brought money into the community, and or that he was on black people's side. And so, listen, I wasn't surprised by that. I've been doing this long enough to know that you never know where people are going to fall, how they're going to vote. That's their own personal prerogative. But I think it's important.
So now, which one is it? Black people think that Donald Trump is on black people's side, or are we running around woke, like they like to say, running around talking about orange man bad? Which one is it? Which one is it? Which one is it? Now, again, I want you guys to pay very close attention. Black people have the highest loyalty rate to the Democrats. And this is how they sit there and talk about black people. I'm sure there's nobody that was upset with Trump, you know what I'm saying, name being on a check, right? I mean, if there's one or two things that people see as a good thing, are they not allowed to say anything? No, they're not allowed to say anything, because democracy is monolith enforcement. Look at the democracy using the media arm to enforce its monolithism. Look at Don Lemon sitting there being a shame simp, and Jen Psaki sitting there looking at him like he's crazy. Like, would you shut up? These two, both of these are both people that call people that have families weird. Just saying.
Important for them to understand and to go into the voting booth with some knowledge, that they're informed as an electorate. And for all the reasons that they were telling me, the information was all false, and they didn't understand the correct reasons why they might vote for him.
Yeah, it's a reminder. I mean, you've called Donald Trump.
So what are the correct reasons? Look at it. So as you guys can see, I want to make sure that everybody sees this. You all see the media being used as a simp enforcement and a monolith enforcement arm, right? If you guys see that, give me a thumbs up. If y'all don't, give me a thumbs down. Now watch, here comes Jen Psaki with the follow-up.
And they didn't understand the correct reasons why they might vote for him.
Yeah, it's a reminder. I mean, you've called Donald Trump a racist on television. You're talking to all these people out there. You still feel that way?
Yes, I think I was the first person to finally say it. And I think I was the first person to say that he was lying because people were afraid to say it.
Is it that people were afraid to say it, or did we say too much? Because if you listen to some people, we just can't stop calling Donald Trump a racist. If you listen to other people, we all just worship Donald Trump like he's on a stained glass window at church. Which one is it? What reality are these people living in?
And I said, why don't we just call it what it is? Why don't we call it a lie? Why don't we call it racism? And I wasn't just saying it because it was an opinion. Anytime I said something like that on television, I backed it up with facts, and I gave people examples of the reasons that I was saying those things. Of course, I think he's
right. Now that's opportunizing, right? Basically, what Don Lemon is doing is, well, you know, I'm gonna choose. This is one of the reasons why when I hear people say that whole little line about, you know, I prefer my racism XYZ. I don't like that line. You know what I'm saying? I don't like that line, because to me, that line is mathematically the same as the better of two evils. So I don't know how you could say you prefer one or the other forms of racism and then turn around and say, well, the better of two evils line isn't the way to go. They're literally mathematically the same thing. Each of those is what's called a greatest common factor, least common factor situation, where you factor out the least common or greatest common variable. You factor out upfront and covert, you're still left with racism. You factor out greater or less, you still got evil. Same damn thing. I don't like those statements. One of those statements is not better than the other. Both of those statements are mathematically equivalent statements that it doesn't matter who says what or who flies off the handle where. Any normal, esteemed, competent mathematician or logician would agree. And that's one of the problems. There's not a lot of that. There's not a lot of that. My line is that I like my racist in an urn or in a history book or on a tombstone. Very different. That means that I like my racist and racism non-existent. Very different.
He's racist. All you have to do is look at his rhetoric. All you have to do is look at his track record. And anyone can see that. Go on.
No, keep going.
So, I mean, anyone can see that. And so I don't think that was odd or something that was bold. So I do think that he's racist. Is it surprising to me that so many African Americans are supporting him? A bit. But I also think that people tend to romanticize the past. And even though by most metrics, the economy is doing better and it's on fire, what people do is they vote with prices. They vote with their wallets. So maybe the economy is better. Both can be true. The economy can be better, but prices are higher and people have less money and they have less resources to put towards those high prices and to feed their families. So, we talk a lot about low information voters. I like to call them low partisan information voters.
Basically saying low IQ voters. How nice. So, I mean, in either situation, whether you got a Byron Donald or whether you got a Don Lemon, they basically get somebody that's just completely far removed to come and sit there and have a nonsensical conversation, just berating people that he's never been around. And that pays. You know what I'm saying? It pays.
Because many of the people I spoke to were not sitting in front of a television every single day and every single night, following every micro breaking news development about Donald Trump and about what's happening in politics. But they were quite aware of what they were doing for their families.